Yo, this is Mayo here back again with the Devil Fruit discussion series, and today we're going to be talking about the Moku-Moku no Mi, or the Smoke Fruit, the only current wielder that we have known to have ever had possession of this fruit before is of course Vice-Admiral Smoker, and today I'm just going to be going over all the places that we've seen it, what it does, what it can do, what it might be able to do in the future, like possibilities of like awakening or anything else, or where we might see it in the future of the story. Like I said in my last Devil Fruit discussion video, basically any user can wield their fruit in a different way, and Smoker wields his fruit in a particular way that is based on basically just capturing opponents, because that's mostly what we've been seeing him do, because we've mostly just seen him fight lower level tier characters, I guess, except for a few bouts he's had with more powerful characters, like that one time where he fought Ace like around Alabasta, and what happened with that is just they kind of canceled out because smoke and fire. What do you think would happen? But basically what he can do is that he can turn any parts of his body into smoke, and then he can kind of use that to fly around, which helps a lot with his mobility and like capturing enemies, which also just fits with his character and everything else. So when he does that, basically he can do that, or he can like extend certain parts of his body and keep them as normal, but like connect it through the smoke, making him have like longer range in trying to deal with enemies. But what he mostly just does is, of course, he has that long pole-armed weapon called Jute, who has Seed Prism built in, so he can like deflect Devil Fruit users especially, which is good when you're dealing with pirates in the Grand Line, which I don't really know why he had that in Logtown, but I guess it was just in case. But in the East Blue, there are not many Devil Fruit users, as we come to know, especially because this was only the third Devil Fruit introduced in the entire story, only coming after Luffy's and Bucky's. So basically, besides that, he has like a bunch of other uses for it, because first of all, he can kind of change the density and how thick the smoke actually is, which helps him not just like move around, but it also helps him catch opponents, which we haven't really seen him do much of, but it's an ability that is definitely useful for what his Devil Fruit has been able to do throughout the story, especially with capturing lower level opponents, even if it doesn't always work on higher level opponents, as we've seen in like previous arcs throughout the story, like Punk Hazard and Marineford. And those are also, of course, like the main places we've seen him, besides also Logtown, and then when he showed up at Alabasta. And those are the four main story arcs where he's been featured in, but we have seen him like at other random points in the manga, even if he wasn't explicitly fighting. So in Logtown, it was just more of an introduction to his abilities and what he can do. In Alabasta, we got to see a lot more of his abilities and just like how he can use smoke, where he can move it in like larger portions and attack enemies, or he can like use it against Ace, but of course then it canceled out, as I said before. And then during Marineford, we got to see a few more of his abilities, but then we didn't get to see much before Boa Hancock just smashed this man's face in. And then, because he tried to capture Luffy, of course, which he was also using his smoke abilities, and they were able to work on Luffy, who is obviously our main protagonist, and we've seen him go through a bunch of predicaments before, but he was not able to escape from Smoker's Plume or Smoke Fruit, which is kind of interesting to see. And then in Punk Hazard, most of the time he was either captured or just getting cucked by a bunch of other opponents like Law and Fargo and everyone else. So we didn't really get to see him use his Devil Fruit in a very positive light, but we did get to see like a few of his just like techniques and what he can do. But what we saw in Punk Hazard was mainly just him using like tactics to like fly around the enemy and like trying to strike him when the iron is hot, as they say. And also he was incorporating hockey into his techniques, which he was mostly just doing that with his weapon. But with how just like the smoke is in general, it would be pretty effective if he would be able to interpret hockey into his devil fruit and its usages, which could be his greatest strength or his greatest weakness, because Smoker Fruit's devil fruit is not like any other Logia, where his devil fruit is definitely not like offensive based at all, because it's literally smoke. Besides like trapping enemies, he can't really do much with that unless he can somehow make the smoke like super dense and be able to like pierce someone or something. I don't see it being very useful in combat, besides the way that he actually uses it. And like you see a bunch of other Logias, and then you have Aces, which obviously gives him a lot more firepower, because he kind of has a Logia that's based around fire. Didn't see that coming, but basically that's one of the ways where like a devil fruit is very good at like what it does, especially with combat. But Smokers is definitely different in how it handles different situations, and it kind of takes like more of a toll on him, because I guess that's just how he has to use it. In some cases it works well, but in other cases we see him kind of losing a lot of fights and pretty easily, and I guess he is going up against strong opponents, but every time we've seen him, he hasn't really won a fight. He's either come to a standstill or done other kinds of situations, because like how he eventually got promoted like the first time was that apparently he was the one that quote unquote took down Crocodile, but that was just the news spinning it so that they wouldn't say that a pirate actually took down Crocodile, that being Monkey Luffy, even if they did still raise his bounty. And Smoker, obviously then, I don't feel like we're going to get like maybe that much of like a big fight with him in the future, because I feel like all the arcs in One Piece are getting a lot busier, especially with Wano, and like Punk Hazard was one of those very special times where that was probably the most likely place that we're going to be able to see Smoker like grow and evolve with his characters and abilities and like everything else that he does. And after this he might get like a smaller bout, but even in Punk Hazard, like they skipped over some parts of his fights and like cut back to it, like it wasn't very important for just like the story in general, so it was kind of shoved to the side. So in general I don't feel like he's going to get that big of like an exploration of like his character or like any sort of fights, but we might get to see some kind of awakening, and what that could mean for the smoke fruit in particular is something kind of strange, especially because of what I said before, where it's more mobility based and not really offensive necessarily, because we've seen other devil fruits, Lolias especially, that do have some kind of awakening abilities, those mainly being Aokiji's fruit, and then of course Akainu's fruit, who's now the Fleet Admiral, when they did their battle. And Punk Hazard, its weather was permanently changed, and that's like what we can guess an awakening with Logia powers could be. So for someone like Smoker, his could either just be like, oh, make things foggy. He could turn other objects into fog, which I don't know would be very useful, but the way that it could be useful is because of that whole density thing. So if he has like a whole room that you're in, and then it just becomes smoke, but it's like thick smoke, you'll be trapped in an instant. So if you see it like that, then it could be very useful in combat. But it's like with his fighting style, I feel like what he's using works well, unless he's in like a one-on-one fight with like strong opponents, which as we've seen so far, he hasn't done very well with. But I feel like that's probably the best use for his devil fruit in general. But one more thing that we know about Smoker is that he's most likely a member of this organization called Sword, and that will probably be revealed in the anime soon. But basically they're like a group of the Marines that are just like trying to not just like change what the Marines are, but possibly even overthrow it and make like a new kind of system where they're just kind of have better people, instead of having people like Akainu who are mad with certain situations that they shouldn't be, and like, you know, absolute justice and all that stuff, where we need better things like lazy justice. Lazy people are best people, I say, because I'm weeb and I'm sad and I want to feel validated, of course. And like with Smoker being there as a part of Sword, that's like one of the places where he could show up in the story, and I don't know how much of an important role he's even going to play there, because we know that there are obviously like more important people that we probably want to see more of, like Garps and Goku, Kobe. And even if Smoker, his epithet being White Chase, he does have to have like that kind of position of like chasing after Luffy, while like Luffy and Kobe are kind of just both kind of becoming like bigger people in the world, while Smoker's goal is to kind of chase after Luffy, even if he hasn't done that since Punk Hazard, which ended like 7+ years ago. So yeah, I don't think he's gonna have that much place in the story. But that's just me. Let me know in the comments below. Also, if you like the video, please do like and comment and subscribe and all that other YouTube stuff. And I'll see you in the next video. And bye.